This is called Rubin's vase. It's quite a famous optical illusion. You might have seen it. Danish psychologist Edgar Rubin in 1915. But what Rubin found was that the way things are drawn determines whether we will be able to see or not. In particular, the way edges of pictures are drawn can decide how we see shapes. In the drawing, the shape depends on where the border is between the black and white regions. What do you see? Do you see two faces, or do you see a vase? Have a look at this picture. This is called the grid, or sometimes the scintillating grid illusion. It's a kind of grid that tricks your brain, that deceives your vision. It's made by superimposing white discs on the intersections of grey bars on a black background. What you'll see is dark dots appearing and disappearing, but actually they're not there at all. Your brain is being tricked. If you keep your eyes on a single intersection, actually the dark dot doesn't even appear. And if you get very close to the image, the dark dots also disappear. Have a look at this one. The multiple stripes or lines. As you look at the lines, you seem to see movement. The way the lines are drawn close together seem to trick your visual system. They make you think the picture is moving. You might have experienced something like this when you travel on an elevator in the underground and you see all the lines on the ground. Because of the many parallel lines, your brain is being tricked. In fact, it's being overloaded. What's happening in the brain? When light enters the eye, it's detected by cells in the retina called photoreceptor cells. These cells convert the light into electrical signals, and these are then sent along the brain via the optic nerve to the back of the brain, primary visual cortex, or V1. Here, basic visual processing takes place. Here, the edges and the lines are analysed, and then the information is passed on to higher level visual areas where more complex processing takes place. But one of the main things that happens here is that patterns and edges are detected and shapes are recognised. And this happens through the use of specialised neurons in the visual cortex, which are sensitive to certain features of visual stimuli such as orientation, shape, colour. Have a look at another picture. This is a triangle called the Penrose triangle. This is what's been called an impossible image. It seems to be solid. It has straight edges, but it cannot possibly be a real three-dimensional object. It looks like it's real when you first look at it, but then as you look again, you realise actually there cannot be a real three-dimensional solid object. Now have a look at this cow. No, not this one, but this one. This gives us an idea of something like a CVI child might see. Firstly, the image is only black and white, and the world, of course, is colour, so that reduces the visibility of the picture anyway. Secondly, it's not a complete image, it's only a part of an image. Thirdly, it's upside down, which doesn't help. However, it is an animal that you have seen before, so you should be able to recognise it. If you have never seen a cow before, then it might be a bit more difficult. So let me turn it up the right way. Can you see the cow? Even the right way up, it's difficult to see because the lines and the edges are not very clear. The contrast is poor between light and dark areas. The point is that the way the edges and lines are drawn and the contrast between light and dark in any image has a big effect on the way we see and how the brain processes. And that's the way a child with CVI sees. That's partly the difficulty that a child with CVI has. So let's take this picture as an example of a really bad image, one that is difficult for anybody, even for us to interpret. And let's take that as an example of what we can do to actually make it better, to improve it for a child with visual processing difficulties, with CVI and so on. Well, first of all, I think one of the things that we can do is actually enhance the edges. To go over the edges, either with a bright colour such as red or a darker colour just to make them thicker, and increasing the edges and even the size of the edges makes a big difference. So you see in a lot of young children's books like Maisie, for example, the Maisie books, characterised by very thick edges on all the line drawings and bright colours, and the pages are simple, the drawings are simple, but the key thing is that there are very thick lines on all of the characters. And I think that's one of the major things that we can actually do to enhance the pictures. Certainly on this really bad cow picture, if we do that, it does make a difference. And then we can increase the contrast, increase the amount of light between the dark and light areas. You can do that by just using black and white, or you can do it by using colours, bright colours like orange, red and yellow. That makes things really stand out and makes things a lot easier to see. And again, the examples I've given in my book, this chapter 6 in this book, I'll give one example from a French TV cartoon character which I think is really good. It's called Trotro, T-R-O-T-R-O. It's an animated cartoon on French television, and I actually watched a young French child with Charge syndrome. This child had poor visual acuity and attentional problems and definitely CVI, and this child was gripped for a good 30 minutes watching this cartoon. And I think one of the reasons was the very good visual qualities of the cartoon. If you look up Trotro, you'll see the lines are very, very thick. The colours are very simple and the background is very plain, and that's a very good example of how to actually enhance images and visual materials for children with CVI. Just ask me for a copy of this book, What Can I Do for My CVI Child, and you can read the chapter for yourself, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, bye.